welcome Dr. Adityanjee on yet another episode of ThE Analysis. Today, we are going to talk about the CJP protests. Sir, I welcome you on this episode of ThE Analysis to discuss the student protests we recently had in India.
Thank you very much indeed, Capt Nikita Sahay, for inviting me yet again on NetSec Analysis. And the topic you have raised is important. There are still some unanswered questions, and they are very serious actually. They are not minor issues. So let's have a discussion.
Absolutely. Sir, absolutely. Because, now that Dharmendra Pradhan has resigned, and I was talking to a lot of people in the common circle, a lot of people are like, "Ki humne bhi khana bheja, we all sent food." So, but there are also allegations of involvement of deep state, which is generally US deep state and all these countries which are against India. But people are like, no, there was no deep state funding. Hum log khana bhej rahe the and all that stuff. How true are these allegations, sir? Was it actually a simple student protest?
It is not a simple student protest. It is a political movement, not students' movement. That's very, very important. And it has been basically orchestrated by opportunistic elements in India's civil society. You have to see the whole evolution of Cockroach Janata Party, how it evolved, and how suddenly on social media it had, I guess, 20 million or whatever number of followers.
Millions of followers.
Where did these followers come from? Look at they were from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Turkey, from United States. How does this happen that spontaneously people sitting in all these countries have bleeding heart for class 12th students of India who are going for NEET examinations? So that raises a lot of questions. The way the mobilization was done and the leadership of this so-called party or organization, if you see their antecedents, they were working with another political party before for years. So if you want to talk about Abhijit Dipke, for 3 years from year 2020 to 2023, he was working for Aam Aadmi Party.
Yes, I was coming to that. That whenever something like this happens, some elements are always common. Kejriwal, Rahul Gandhi.
And again, if you see some of the interviews at Jantar Mantar of the delivery boys who were delivering food, there were a number of issues that came up. Somebody sitting in Qatar is ordering 2,000 meals 4 times a day. Somebody is
True.
sitting in Qatar. Somebody is sitting in Dubai. What do they have to do with school system or examination system in India? Similarly, there is one gentleman by name Zunaid Khan, who initially for 3-4 weeks were
They did not even
supplying,
invite him to the party.
supplying the food, and this guy, has just a mobile repair shop. So where's the money coming from? You have a face, but who's behind this? And after the resolution or whatever settlement they had with the union government, if you see, there's an interview of Saurav Das with Kapil Sibal sitting next to him, saying that all throughout this agitation, we were in consultation with Kapil Sibal. Is Kapil Sibal a student? He's a Supreme Court lawyer. He's a Rajya Sabha member. He has been part of Congress party. He has been in forefront of any anti-national, anti-government agitation. So if Saurav Das himself admits that Kapil Sibal was orchestrating and advising him on legal issues all throughout this agitation, that speaks volumes. And lastly, who is Saurav Das? Is
An
he a student?
expensive lawyer.
He's not a student. Saurav Das was in Norway last year attending an international meeting, and There's a picture of him with a Norwegian person, Hellelang Svensson, who had created some noise during a bilateral visit by Prime Minister Modi to Norway with the Norwegian Prime Minister, shouting some statements that why don't you speak directly to the press, which was totally
Yeah.
uncalled for because it was not a joint press conference, it was a joint press briefing, not a press conference. So when you look at all these things, and after the thing, you see that Greta Thunberg has come out in London. That
Greta Thunberg, true.
yes.
Mm.
So traditionally or derisively, it is called the toolkit gang. It is activation of the same mechanism. And what is of serious concern, that if they were genuine students who were protesting against the inefficiencies in the NEET examination, that was one thing. But what was actually happening, that there were
The Pandora's box.
Pandora's box slogan shouting against not just the Indian government, but Indian army. Very disrespectful statements made
Very.
about Indian army, gestures, obscene gestures about the army, about the police force. Also, there were slogans shouting about, reintroducing Article 370, Sharji Lamam, all those kind of things. So their agenda was totally different rather than just the student protest. And it was very obvious that the lumpen elements of the society, I won't even say civil society because these people are not civil. And they were not all students. They were people of all age groups, who had their axe to grind. So I think we have to seriously look at why this agitation, why it happened, who was behind it, who was funding it, because there was strong amount of funding for this particular agitation, and what did they want to achieve. Because in the Jantar Mantar protest, there were slogans about that we will bring situation like Nepal, like Bangladesh, where the same technology or same modus operandi was employed or deployed by the deep state agents. So you have this pattern that Western countries, for their own geopolitical purposes, are destabilizing democratically elected governments in this region. And it started not just now, it started 3-4 years ago from Pakistan. Everyone knows how Imran Khan, at that time he was democratically elected prime minister, was deposed. Some members of parliament, or what they call MNAs, member of National Assembly, were paid money to vote a no confidence motion against him, and the army basically engineered a government takeover by a different group of people. You had similar thing done in Sri Lanka. Whether you agree with the political situation or not is a different issue. The Rajapaksa family was made to flee the country. Okay, so the same technology, same toolkit. Then you had in Bangladesh that elections happen. Sheikh Hasina gets elected by a majority, solid majority, and then in 4 or 5 months there's a student protest. Same thing happened in Nepal. And in Bharat also, the same situation has been tried before. Shaheen Bagh, farmers' agitation, demonetization, Rohit Vemula, agitation. You find a cause and people will bring lumpen elements of the society in cahoots with some of the political parties that have agenda to grind. These are the people who cannot win elections fair and square. And their
True,
only
sir.
hope is to have their foreign backers pump in money, create havoc, create unrest, create anarchy. And in that process, if the government of the day uses state force without foresight, and there are some people
Then
killed.
talk about violation of human
Yes,
rights.
yes.
Absolutely, sir. Coming to Sonam Wangchuk, a lot of people are saying that because the FCRA permission for his NGO was cancelled by the government couple of years back. That time also he had come down to the streets and there was this huge, procession in Ladakh also, and there were some lives were also lost because it was violent as well. And now again he started this whole thing with Deep K and all these people who were like nobody unknowns in our society. Like Sonam Wangchuk became the center of attraction, and then all these other students came together, and all this happened. So, how true is his
I think there's
involvement with?
some element of truth to it. And even during the current agitation, uh, or prior to that in the Ladakh agitation, Sonam Wangchuk had made very, very serious statement. And I think the readers or the audience have right to know that statement. What he had said at that time, that if this time the PLA, the Chinese army, comes into Ladakh, instead of resisting them, we will invite them. What more anti-national credentials you have? So unfortunately, we try to sort of, put certain individuals on high pedestal and try to revere them, try to defy them, make them into living gods. Sonam Wangchuk is not a living god. Anna
No.
Hazare is not a living god. These are nobodies who just want some limelight and want to utilize and abuse our democratic system.
Yeah,
Our
just
freedom.
because some of their personal intentions are not able to take shape, so they feel that they'll shake the system of the country because their personal
Yes,
intentions are not.
yes. Their personal agenda
So
is
the
not being fulfilled. So they need
agenda is
to
not.
attract attention by hook or by crook. In that process, if the nation goes down the drain, that's okay with them.
And so many youngsters, it was so saddening to see that such abusive bad language for elected ministers in positions, for our prime minister. Whatever said and done, you can be angry. We have also been angry. I'm sure you have also been angry. Jayaprakash Narayan's whole total revolution and everything happened in your time. But who uses such abusive language?
I think, again, there's a tendency in the media, in the so called civil society, to
To
eulogize,
celebrate. Yeah,
to
to celebrate
eulogize
such things.
anyone who goes to the extreme trying to demonize the government of the day or prime minister of the day. Now, in democracy, you have right to criticize, you have right to dissent, you have right to have peaceful marches or whatever on policy issues. But demonizing someone, using unparliamentary or very abusive, or what I may call gutter language. I mean, it is not just unparliamentary, it is gutter language, and it's not one person, it's multiple people. And these people are being encouraged. These people are being encouraged that, it's okay, this is a new normal. If you use four-letter words or curse words or really very bad language,
That means you're really angry.
uh, you are normalizing that.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Like if you're really angry, then you use that kind of language.
I mean, there's no reason to use that kind of language because you don't win any argument by using that language. By shouting loudly, by pelting stones, and by using abusive language, you don't win an argument. Actually, you lose respect. And I'm pretty sure that there was a silent majority in India that was watching this, that was disgusted by this behavior, and it will reflect upon these individuals who have been identified, behaving in this particular manner. They will be
I think they
consequent.
branded. I think they've branded the whole generation with such negative colors of using such language, unparliamentary language, and I wonder if tomorrow a Gen Z will come looking for a job. I'll be very much on a back foot, footing. That what if I don't give him a pay hike the way he wants it? What if he starts abusing me? It will be on my mind.
So you use the word Gen Z. And again, how innocuous words become normalized. This is a particular word used in United States American socio-political lingo. People talk about Gen Z. If I ask them what are boomers, they would have no answer. What are millennials? They would have no answers. Why? Because they have not understood that this is a socio-anthropological classification of generational change in the United States. It has nothing
My
to do with
God.
Bharat. It has nothing to do with Bharat. Don't blindly copy like a monkey the language they are using. It has nothing to do with Bharat's socio-economic situation. You can say the youth of the country or something like that, but this has become a very fashionable word. In Nepal, Gen Z. Okay. What is Z? In India, in Nepal, in Bangladesh, they don't call it Z, they call it Z. Okay.
Z.
So importing this Western notion of Gen Z without understanding the underpinnings of the sociological classification of generation change in United States society and trying to apply that one particular word to India shows the bankruptcy of the mind. Because if I ask follow-up questions on other generations in the United States, these people will have no clue what
They
they are
have no
talking.
clue. They don't have a clue. I have tried to have that conversation.
And just because you can make some noise and generate some eyeballs on social media, it does not actually.
Which was considered to be distasteful even in millennials. Even in my generation, it was considered to be distasteful. And immediately we have a generation right after us, which is like all going all guns blazing and uh, true.
Exactly. So I have a lot of issues. You know, my heart bleeds for the nation and for the citizens, whether they are young citizens, whether they are future of the nation or young generation. But
Super.
when you want, when you want rights, rights have to be balanced against responsibilities. Yes, you are demanding for your rights, but you don't show any responsible behavior. And that is very, very sad. You cannot be just sort of entitled, feeling entitled that I have to get this by hook or by crook. And again, coming back to the examination and the leaks, you have to see the whole situation that this is like making mountain out of a molehill. Why NEET was introduced? I know the era when admission to medical schools was decentralized at state level. What used to happen? Seats were sold, bribes were paid, capitation fees was paid. What is happening that state of Tamil Nadu is very against NEET examination. Why?
They would want to
Because
buy the seats separately.
because they cannot compete nationally. It is a fair and square system. It's not absolute. In India, at every level, there is corruption. So you had the paper setters who were used by the NTA themselves involved with coaching centers, the coaching mafia. And unfortunately, for certain consideration of money, they leaked the papers. It has nothing to
True.
do with Dharmendra Pradhan. It has nothing to do with, any government or something like that. It has to do with the low moral character of Indian society
The
overall.
people.
The people,
Overall, yes.
the parents buy the sold leaked paper.
True.
The
It was
parents
their
buy the
greed.
leaked paper, the students use the leaked paper to appear in the exams. And yes, it is sad, it is very unfortunate that certain young lives were lost because of suicide.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't want
That was
to,
really sad.
and I don't want to sort of marginalize that and minimize that. But as a psychiatrist, when I see suicide by young in India is a problem, it's a challenge. There are other determinants. It's not just leaking of the neat paper. We have to
It's
look
too
at,
much pressure already.
yes. So, I studied at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. When I was a medical student, I used to live in hostel. And pretty much every year, even after coming to All India Institute, maybe one student every year will commit suicide. Why? Because they could not cope up with the pressure. So there are other sociological determinants of unrestrained suicidal behaviors amongst the young in India. And it is reflected by young students, if they fail in examination, if they have a failure in a love affair or something like that, suicide becomes an almost impulsive action. It has to be tackled at a different level. I'm not saying that we just, ignore that. That behavior is not to be encouraged. There has to be some focus on mental health. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, Supreme Court of India had started a task force on prevention of suicide in institutions and universities. And I think that task force had given some recommendations. But this example of paper leak and subsequent suicides has been exploited and, if I may say, usurped by certain operatives or B team of Aam Aadmi Party in cahoots with some toolkit gang. That is what has happened. And it is very
True,
sad
sir.
for Indian democracy.
How easily people started comparing the situation to Nepal's protests, which was also so-called Gen Z, because there were a lot of middle-aged people also in that Nepal protest, but they named it it was so I realized that some people were so easily like Nepal, Bharat tera hal Nepal jaisa hoga and everything. In no time, there was so much hatred for the country. It was shocking.
It was shocking, and that tells you that, again, it was a small minority. It's not whole of India. Whole of the youth of India were at Jantar Mantar. There
No,
were
the
some,
ones who cracked the exam, they're already in the institutions and colleges. They have already gone to study.
they were studying, they were appearing in exams, they passed the exams, they got into the colleges, got their counseling and seats. It's not that the government did not act promptly. Paper was
Yeah.
leaked. Who detected the
Within a
leak?
month,
Who detected
exams
the
were
leak?
held.
It was the government. It was the NTA who uh, reassigned the examination within like a week or so. It was the government. So government took all the appropriate actions. And yes, it is very unfortunate that we have corruption seeping at all levels of Bharatiya society. And it is a big challenge. But by asking resignation of the education minister, you don't solve the problem. For solving problem, there's a totally different modus operandi that has to be done. In fact, after all this, Prime Minister, appointed an expert committee under chairmanship of Nandan Nilekani, with 4 or 5 different experts, and director of Chennai IIT and former IB chief and one logistic expert, etc., etc. So that's a way to reform this particular neat problem, and the assurance that next year it'll be a computer-based test. So issue of leaking papers probably will not be there. But under the circumstances and looking at the background of why NEET was introduced, and there was total unanimity at that time, Supreme Court also said that we need a national level examination to avoid all this corruption at local level, the local leaders selling seeds and bribes and capitation fee, all that was eliminated. So I feel very, very alarmed that this issue has been used by antisocial elements. An attempt has been made to try to put the government of the day on the mat. Government that was democratically elected. In the name of democracy, you are harming democracy. And now I hear that CJP is saying, Cockroach Janta Party, that They are looking at other agenda for themselves, what they can do next, whether they will
Ethanol agenda.
ethanol issue, other issues, and now after Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation, a demand has been made for resignation of Home Minister Amit Shah, and of course there are demands for resignation of Nitin Gadkari. So where will this end? Just because you can mobilize 20,000 people on the street and threaten to create havoc, to impose violence on the nation, you should not be rewarded by appeasement. And in this context, I will bring a name of a particular person who has been called Andolan Jivi, professional protester, and that name is Yogendra Yadav, who has gone on the record to say that Indian democracy will not be decided in the parliament but on the street. I mean, if you have so called intellectuals rationalizing violence, rationalizing coarse behavior, you know, demonizing India's democratic
It's
system,
pitiful. It's pitiful.
it's pitiful. It's pitiful. In Sanskrit, there's a saying, Vinashakale Viparita Buddhi. This is what exactly is happening. And these people who made all these reels and videos and Instagrams using abusive language, just they have to learn what is going to happen to them in life, because these videos are there forever.
Yeah,
No
forever.
employer will like to, no employer would like to hire you.
I just told you I'll be scared, not because I hate them. I'll be like, oh my God, if I don't give them what they want, what if they pelt stones at me? What if they start abusing me? True. That's there, sir. Okay, finally, I would like to ask you that what are the expectations from Prahlad Joshi as the new education minister?
Look, in principle, I would not have preferred resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan.
But there was so
In
much
principle.
happening.
But government made a strategic decision to take a tactical retreat and make sure that the threat of implementing the violence, they don't get the opportunity. So government of the day made a tactical retreat by, you know, taking the resignation of
Okay.
Dharmendra Pradhan.
Giving in to the demands of our resignation.
Yeah. And we can have different views whether he should have resigned on day one or now or not resigned. It's a debatable issue, but government did not want to play into the hands of anarchists.
I feel that it's all right that government took its own time to take this action
Yeah.
because then we also saw Greta Thunberg and all these irrelevant people popping up from nowhere and
Yeah.
participating in something happening in India.
So if
It
you look
kind
at
of gives you a very
Prahlad
clear picture.
Joshi, Prahlad Joshi is a no nonsense person. If you look at his background in the cabinet, it is the RSS background. He is highly disciplined and he will do what is right. He's not an educationist. Let me be very clear. Yes, he is educated. He has a college degree, but he is not educationist in the traditional sense. And I think it is just a temporary decision right now because we have been talking about sort of cabinet reshuffle. So it's just a temporary assignment of the education portfolio given to him. Uh, Maybe after the parliament session is over, the prime minister may do a major change in the cabinet. You already had Ravneet Singh Bittu resign
Mm.
because his Rajya Sabha membership had finished and he wanted to focus on Punjab Assembly election. So you will have some sort of cabinet reshuffle maybe after the current parliamentary session is over, because you don't do cabinet reshuffle when parliament is in session.
Mm.
So my guess is that it is just a temporary assignment, but why the prime minister appointed Prahlad Joshi was that you needed a no nonsense person who could enforce discipline at all levels. Because yes, the bureaucracy failed if NTA officials were not able to conduct the examination without leakage. Then there has to be some accountability and responsibility. So 47 officials of the NTA lost their jobs. But irony, the same people who demanded Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation did not demand resignation of Madhu Bangarappa, the education minister of Karnataka,
Or
or
even
the
in Punjab.
or education minister of Punjab, or in her Himachal Pradesh, where similar leaks happened. And all
It's
this
like they
why.
always exploit emotions of people. Just because NDA is in power right now, it's kind of easy to target people in power because the sentiments of people who are, who couldn't have their way kind of gets very heavy on logical reasoning and thinking of general awareness of people.
So there is a video interview or video clip of Priyanka Vadra surfacing with Ashok Gehlot, who was the chief minister of Rajasthan, in which she is saying that, and Ashok Gehlot, besides being chief minister, was also the education minister of that particular state, that Ashok Gehlot tried to prevent paper leaks several times. He worked very hard, but he has not been successful. Leaking of papers is a problem in our country. And now, when
Mhm.
Priyanka
I saw that.
Gandhi is asked by journalists about that particular video, she gets angry that you are bringing irrelevant issues and I'm not going to answer any questions that are not relevant to the current agitation. So again, I'm bringing this, it's not that, one mistake justifies other mistake. You have corruption, which is the basic determinant of this problem, seeping throughout the system in which everyone is complicit. People who are running these coaching centers, they make hell of a lot of money,
They do.
and some of them
How
do
is it
the.
happening that suddenly, like from my time onwards, after that, everybody who is doing coaching, only that person clears an examination? We were not doing any coaching to clear examinations. We were cracking them.
Yes, but
What
now the
happened all
new
of a
new
sudden?
norm is that parents have to send their children to these coaching centers in Kota, spend lakhs
Yeah.
of rupees for coaching classes, and yes, the advantage is that not only you get coaching, but you also possibly get the leak paper. So
Yes.
there's a nexus. There's a corrupt nexus between bureaucrats or officials, low-level officials, the paper setters, the
Hmm.
coaching mafia, and local leaders, and there's a whole ecosystem of corruption. Now, for that, you cannot just hold responsible the union education minister. Mind you, education is a concurrent subject in Indian constitution. It is on the union list as well as the state list. So states are also equally involved and have equal responsibility. So the bottom line is that, yes, what NEET was an improvement on previous state of affairs. Can it be improved? Very much so. Should it be improved? Yes, very much so. Did
Hmm.
it affect people's life? Yes, it did. But that's not, any reform of need alone will not solve the problem. The middle class parents should not be putting so much of pressure on their children that if you cannot become a doctor or an engineer or, some
You have
get
no
into
future.
IIT, you have no future. And the
Yeah.
children who are not very mature take the failure so severely to heart that they commit suicide. The life goes on. You have beautiful life. You have a young life. You can do a lot of other
True.
things. Just doing
Yeah.
medicine or engineering is not the pinnacle of life. There are multiple professions, and I think that is where
Also,
the society has failed. Society as a whole failed. I'm not actually absolving the government for its lack of action.
that's
Granted,
true, sir.
all that is granted. But then we have to do introspections as individuals, as families, as societies, as parents, and as civil society. What are you normalizing? In the name of protest or name of agitation, you are normalizing criminal behavior.
Criminal behavior. True. Violent criminal behavior. I also feel that children nowadays also need to harden up a bit because there was always pressure on the Indian child. But nowadays, so many incidents are happening. I think parents have gone too soft on the kids where they should be hard, and they're just the pressure for cracking an exam is just the same.
I, all those things are there, and there's this irrational thing that a 30-year-old also is a kid, bacha hai. You become adult at your age 18. You have right to vote.
My father had his third child, that's me, by the time he was 30.
So, how much we can tolerate behavior and say कि बच्चा है गलती हो गई ये हो गया वो हो गया. If somebody is 30 I have seen, PhD students who are 35 years old and people are calling these are like kids. These are our kids. Come on, grow
Wow.
up, take some responsibility. You
True.
be the adult you say that you are. You want your rights. Age 18, you will marry on your own. You will drink. You will do this. You will do that. You will, break the norms of the society. Then you take responsibility for your life.
That's true, sir. So today we spoke in detail about the Gen Z behavior, of course, because of the protests which have been tagged as the Gen Z protests. But obviously, we saw people from all different age groups participating in this very violent kind of protest in the name of student anger. So, Dr. Adityanjee, thank you so much for joining me on NATSIC analysis. Do you want to add something more?
Well, it was not a student protest alone. It was a protest by lumpen elements of Indian society that usurped the students' anger for their own purposes. Secondly, I don't like to apply the US terminology to Indian socio-political situation.
Gen
So
Z.
I
You
am
just like
allergic
Gen
to
Z,
this
sir.
word Gen Z because half of the Indians would not know where this word is coming from. And of course, you had a lot of great agitators who did not know what NEET was, what CBSE was, what UGC was, and
Oh, those interviews were amazing.
that
What's neat and the full form, yeah.
yeah, that told you who were orchestrating and who were part of this particular agitation. But a word of caution for India's civil society that we have to call a spade a spade. You have to put a full stop on criminal antisocial behaviors and not encourage it by, sort of yielding to the demands. And yes, you retreat once, but it gives incentives to people to break the law again and make further demands. So the government has to be on its watchful best so that this is not repeated ever in future.
Absolutely, sir. Dr. Adityanjee, thank you so much for joining me today on NATSIC analysis. Instead of discussing the geopolitics, we did discuss world politics because this so-called student protest seems to involve all of the world around us.